when the sentiment is already very bearish? Which is a very excellent question. Now, do you remember, Charlie, just a few weeks ago, me and you did a webinar together, and we were talking about contrarian thinking. In fact, here's my video right here. So this is the video from my video we did together about a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was. There it is. So what happened was, just to let me get my pen here so I can draw on this chart. So as you may know, I genuinely believe that this rally that occurred in Bitcoin here, this rally, I believe this was actually the start of a new upward trend. I got it wrong. I admit that. I was wrong about that. Although certainly the fact that there was a strong rally with volume, with strong volume happening right here, okay, this was an indication that potentially the trend was reversing. And in fact, Charlie at the time agreed with me as well. This could potentially be a bottom. But I also said this, I think me and you, Charlie, both of us said this, that in order for this to be an uptrend, price must not fall back to the previous lows. It must not fall below 6,800. It must not fall below to 6,000. And I said at the time that even though I was bullish on Bitcoin at the time, which of course turned out to be incorrect as we can see now, it is true that we said that if price were to come back to the previous lows, that would not be a good sign at all, and that actually would increase the probability that we're going to potentially break these lows that we formed back in February, lows formed back in April, and of course, more importantly, the lows back formed in June, which means that if we break those lows eventually, perhaps by end of August or perhaps by September, we could potentially go much further lower. Now, the question that was asked on my video just recently was, well, hang on a second, Alessio, isn't the majority opinion right now bearish? So surely if everybody thinks it's going to go lower, doesn't, you know, if the majority opinion is already bearish, why would price go lower? Which is a very good question. So I'm going to try and address this question, okay? And we'll get Charlie's opinion on this as well. So here's the thing. And okay, so this is a chart of Bitcoin from the bear market. So that just to show you guys, that top line that you see on my chart, that is the price of Bitcoin from 2014 to 2015 during its massive bear market. Okay, underneath is a Bitcoin sentiment chart courtesy of Jason Geppert of sentimenttrader.com. And for those of you who don't know, Jason Geppert, he takes a look at the sentiment of different markets, including Bitcoin. And I keep an eye on the sentiment, as you can see here. Now, take a look at this. During the bear market of Bitcoin from 2014 to 2015, take a look over here, throughout this entire period when price was falling. And over here. All right. What was the price doing? Price was in a downtrend. Okay, price was falling here. There's no doubt about it, guys, that during the 2014 and 2015 Bitcoin market was in a bear market. It was in a downward trend. But look at the sentiment then. Look at the sentiment. Was the sentiment during that period, was the sentiment bullish or bearish? Have a look at it and you tell me, guys. So by the way, just to let you know, this is the line of excessive optimism, this red level, and this is the line of excessive pessimism. So this is bearishness, bearish sentiment, and this is bearish sentiment, and this is bullish sentiment at the top. Take a look, guys, and you will see something. Notice that even though the Bitcoin sentiment was very bearish here, look at 2014 here, 2014. Bitcoin was the sentiment, and when we say sentiment, we're talking about public opinion, the public sentiment. The majority of traders, the majority of the public opinion was heavily against Bitcoin, bearish sentiment. Even though the price was falling, bearish sentiment continued, and it continued. So you'll notice, guys, that even though the sentiment was heavily against Bitcoin, price still continued to drop. It continued to drop further and further. So why? You might be asking yourself, why was that happening? And the reason, I'll ask Charlie's opinion on this as well. But you see, guys, what you have to appreciate is this. When you're in a bear market, price does not care that much about the sentiment anymore. Sentiment or public opinion or the bullishness and bearishness of the public or everybody else. That is 1/3 of what you look at or what you analyze when you look at the price. So when you analyze a market, you don't just look at the sentiment. You got to look at the price action. You got to ask yourself: is it a bull market? Are we in a bear market? What are the technicals? What are the charts saying to us? So sentiment is just one thing, one of 3 things that you look at. The other 2 are technicals, and some people would say look at fundamentals. Although I'm personally not heavily into the fundamentals. I do look at it certainly, but I'm more of a technicals person. And yes, I do look at sentiment too. But guys, here's what you have to appreciate. What you have to appreciate is that in a bear market, the sentiment rule breaks down. It doesn't really apply. In a bear market, and actually here's an important thing. You know you're in a bear market, or you know you're about to enter a bear market, when even though the price, let me just remove everything, let me just remove all this stuff on my chart. You know you're about to enter a bear market, or you know you're in a bear market, when price does not care about the bearish sentiment. In a bear market, or when you're about to start a bear market, the sentiment can remain bearish and price can continue dropping. All right, did you get that? So you know you're in a bear market, or you know you're about to enter a bear market, when you can have public opinion heavily bearish in a market, heavily against the market, and price does not care, price continues to drop. Why? Now, there are many reasons here, but one of the main reasons is the sellers are in control, okay? Bears have control. So what's happening is that there's not enough demand to hold off the supply. There's not enough demand to hold off the selling. So there's more sellers in the market than there's buyers. So as a result, both short sellers and the people who bought before, perhaps unloading and getting rid of their holdings, unfortunately, sellers have control, and that means despite the heavily bearish sentiment, price can continue dropping. So guys, that rule we had that we talked about in the previous video about when is a majority opinion wrong, unfortunately, that rule breaks down in a bear market. So you're right, that person who commented on my video, he was right. The sentiment right now, let's look at the sentiment right now in Bitcoin. This is the sentiment right now, August 2018. Again, courtesy of Jason Gephart of sentimenttrader.com. The sentiment has been heavily bearish. And what happens? The market doesn't care. The rallies don't succeed. Look at this. The sentiment has been very bearish here recently. From June to July, sentiment's been bearish. And I genuinely believed this was the start of a bull market. But look what happened. That rally failed. The rally we had just recently, this rally here, that failed. It failed despite a heavily bearish sentiment in the market, despite the fact that majority opinion were bearish on Bitcoin, which tells us what? It tells us perhaps the majority opinion actually isn't bearish. Perhaps we were wrong to say that there are that many bears in the market. I actually think there's about a 50-50. I don't think people have turned against Bitcoin as much as we think they have. I now believe that actually there are just about many bullish people out there as there are bears. So I think we were wrong to say some weeks ago that the majority opinion was bearish. I still think there's way too many bulls in this market, okay? And we need to get those bulls. I think what needs to happen is, in order for us to see a bottom in Bitcoin, what needs to happen is that the majority of people need to turn against Bitcoin. That hasn't happened yet. I've read the comments on my videos, guys. I've been reading the comments on my videos. I've been checking the opinions of people. And I can say this, guys, that's not true. People haven't turned against Bitcoin. In fact, you will see just recently, Bitcoin had hit an extreme bullish just about a few weeks ago. So yeah, what we're seeing, guys, I think what's happening is that this is a sign of a bear market, or we're about to enter a bear market. I don't think we're there yet. I said before that we will only enter a bear market when Bitcoin officially takes out the previous lows, officially breaks down below the February, July, June lows, okay? I don't think we're there yet, but I think we could happen. That could happen very potentially by September. So guys, I think what's happening is this. The reason why Bitcoin can continue to drop despite bearish sentiment is because we could be entering a bear market. In a bear market, the rule about bearish sentiment being in a contrarian signal, that rule breaks down. It doesn't apply. Remember, guys, in a bear market, price can continue dropping despite everybody being bearish, or the majority being
because there's going to be a lot of people on the sidelines who may not be in the market, so they don't come under these measurements, but they might still be optimistic, you see. And I know from speaking generally to people out there, people still associate Bitcoin with something that they might want to invest into, but they may not have actually invested yet, but they're still interested in that market. There's still a huge amount of interest there, and that sentiment hasn't been erased yet. Exactly what you've just said. So you've got something like that indicator will be measuring the sentiment amongst traders, people who are active in that market. There's a lot of people who are not active in it, but are still coming into the market just as we speak. And so I still see it. If you go onto the likes of Instagram and some of the social medias out there, there's still a lot of stuff out there about the cryptocurrencies, and quite rightly so. It's something that's here for the future. But I think you're absolutely right. I don't think everyone's flushed out enough yet. I think once everyone's a bit sick of Bitcoin and the likes, then we'll probably see a true bottom.
The chart's saying to us, look, we've had 3 failed rallies. 1 failed rally here. 2 is the second rally failed. The third rally, which had really some potential. This third rally, guys, let's not forget this. That rally, that third one, should have succeeded if we were about to enter a bull market. So if the bull market theory was correct, and I believe it to be correct at the time, based on the evidence, based on the volume and everything else, why did it fail? It failed clearly because there's so many sellers out there. There's too many. I know there's manipulation involved. I do know that. If there was enough demand, we should have stayed in a bull market. We should have continued this uptrend. This trend should have continued above 9,000 to 10,000. It didn't do that. So why not? Why didn't it do it? Because there isn't enough demand at these current levels. There's not enough buyers out there against sellers to push this into a bull market. And as Charlie was saying, we need to see these bulls being flushed out until everyone has turned against Bitcoin. And that has not happened yet, guys. Not everyone has turned against Bitcoin. There's still significantly a lot of bulls out there. And until everyone has turned against Bitcoin and calling for lower and lower levels, I don't think we're going to see a bottoming pattern, a bottom on Bitcoin. And guys, remember, between 2014 and 2015, look at this chart. Between 2014 and 2015, Bitcoin kept dropping. And what was the sentiment? The sentiment was overall bearish. Look at it. So clearly, guys, the bearish sentiment did not help form a bottom in Bitcoin until everyone finally gives up. Which means what? It means you got to look at the price action. You got to look at the price action, not just the sentiment.